here in Minnesota. She could not practice law because it need a certification or a license to do that. But because she wanted to do some volunteer work, I got to know that organization there. And all what I know about that organization is that if the student goes back to the country, goes back to Colombia, the student loan was forgiven. If they decided to stay, which they could, they would be, paying back the loan. So, col futuro, keep it in mind. I have a question for the audience. If you'd like to think about it, you might have the resources. Do you know what it normally takes for a person to apply for a business loan that maybe a new immigrant might not have that requirement? Yes, sir?
Credit history.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. What it takes time to build credit, and perhaps a new immigrant does not know what credit is, and does not know how to manage credit, because it's not enough to have a credit history, but a fair to good credit history, and that is what new immigrants lack of.
It's kind of like new students trying to get a job and they're asked to show experience, but how do you get experience without getting a job?
That is correct, yes, yes. It is a, unfortunate, a natural process, but the good thing is that there are organizations and there are institutions for youth students, career service, etc., or corporate wanting to recruit new graduates. And for potential business owners, there are resources like Latino Economic Development Center that would either help them getting a loan from our organization or connect them with other lending institutions out there. Is there anything that you can think of that could be a barrier into the traditional lending requirements, or anything else that is required to apply for a business loan? What about a business plan? A business plan is a written document that describes what's your business idea, how you're going to do it, who is going to be the key person, who is going to operate your business, what is your own task within your business. And many times we've found out that the person has a business plan in here. Getting to a paper is difficult because either writing skills or because just not to know what involves the titles or the content on a business consultant. That is what we help people with, putting together what they have already thought, and help them even go more in depth of their thinking and how to start a business and how to operate a business once they open it. Yes, ma'am?
I'm curious to know how the services that you provide as consultants, how long is that relationship? I would imagine that developing a business plan and helping with financial support and those things takes some time. And so what is the duration of that relationship that you have with those entrepreneurs?
Take the question, please.
Well, it can last several years or probably a couple of sessions. But let me give you my perspective of some Latinos that personally I have helped. That here in St. Cloud, for example, one of them is the La Perla Market here in St. Cloud, and I have known the owners for, let's say, 4 years, and they come to me every time they have all kind of problems. from open or deal with checking account to intervene with the Minnesota Department of Revenue. We establish a serious relationship with our clients.
And what kind of opportunities are in the state for immigrant Latinos?
Thank you. Again, I'm Rick Miller.
Besides this
For
organization?
people that want to start businesses,
Besides this organization?
just in general, opportunities, business types or resources, and you guys represent resources. What other opportunities?
So Yolanda is asking what are the opportunities that new immigrants, Latino, have out there to start businesses?
Yeah, if you could talk a little bit about the kind of the state, the state, I mean, what's going on out there and what opportunities?
Let's see, when you come from a different country with different cultures, traditions, you're missing one portion of your land, one portion of your family. You're starting, or immigrants starting seeking out how to cook the same food, how to buy the same groceries, how to buy the same clothes, or similar to what they used to. And that is a natural sense of feel secure and comfortable in their zone that is not naturally their own. And so that's why we see the first immigrant businesses being grocery stores, small supermarkets with meat markets, restaurants, clothing stores, businesses that sell small decorating things for special events, baptisms, first communions, weddings. When LADC came to the rural area, trying to assist the Latinos starting businesses if they wanted, we noticed there were many of them that moved to the rural area to work at packing companies. But yet, they needed to have their own resources. And so family members started opening business like I described. Now we're seeing people buying farms, but not farming. That has been impacted to LADC. Now that we have started exploring helping people going into the Healthy Food Initiative, which is a nationwide initiative, to farm more, to grow more healthy food, and to have that healthy food more accessible to people not only in the urban and metro area, but in the rural area as well. So the organization is exploring to organizing people to farm more and be more included into the Healthy Food Nationwide initiative.
I would like to add that recently, or since last year, I started to work with Latino farmers in Lone Prairie and in Owatonna, and we're trying to create co-ops. That's a new economic model that can create benefits to the Latino population. We know for sure that most of dairy industry here in Minnesota depend on, sadly, on the undocumented Mexican labor, as well as meat processing plants. and in certain way, vegetable processing plant. And this is a new area where we are trying to organize these people that instead of working mainly on meat processing plants, that they can do farming for themselves, and it's easier for them. We believe firmly that it will benefit them, creating jobs and being owners of the business and workers, and they can have better access to credit as a group than as an individual. We have another group of people in New Germany, about probably 30 miles east of Hutchinson, and this group of it's in the process of trying to get access credit for buying this landscaping company of the owner who wants to retire.
So you're talking about a worker-owned co-op?
Yes, I am. And the other two projects in Owatonna and Lone Prairie, that's the same perspective. We're looking at that.
So LEDC is involved in a lot of things that are opportunities for development, economic opportunities. Absolutely.
We not only provide technical assistance to the small businesses, but we're, let's say, we're helping, or we're developing tools in other areas besides the typical immigrant business.
Could you tell us the magnitude of your loan fund? And where is the funding source?
Sure. LEDC loan program and loan pool, where is the person who asked? Okay. It's still very small. We have helped people accessing money from other non-traditional lenders by saying that is, other than a bank, the other lenders are called non-traditional lenders. So we have a very small pool. We have proposals out there, federal proposals and state proposals, that if they are granted by the end of this year, we could have 1.2 million loan pool. But we have packaged loans, so we have presented loan proposals on behalf of loan applicants. Last year, we presented close to $4 million in loan packages, total of 14 loans that we presented to other non-traditional lenders, or a combination with a non-traditional lender and a bank. So LEDC is a lender. We are non-traditional lenders because we're not a bank. So right now it's very small. We have, let's see, last year we had our own money, $675,000. We already loaned that money, and we have no more than $50,000 to lend. So we combine microloans with real estate investments. We're not investing, we're helping business owners investing in real estate. That will increase employment. And we're now assisting farmers to access credit. The size of the farms that we're talking about would not be more than $10,000 in one single loan. Maybe they would need a couple more loans through the year, through the growing of the business. But to begin with, it's about that amount. Did I answer your question? Thanks. Now, we hope to grow this loan pool much more. Yes.
What's the
reaction and interaction with the communities that you have these farms in, mainly majority community? How do they see the tourists coming in and working the land?
In which sector?
Farming.
Farming.
Okay, first of all, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture is very interesting in working with let's say Latino immigrants or in overall general the immigrant community, and we're collaborating with specifically with Hmong and is there any other group? Yes. Latinos and Hmong, so that's basically, we have a collaboration. And we are in partnership with another organization called Land Scholarship Project, which is basically a group of non-immigrant farmers throughout the region, let's say, not only here in the state, but I believe the upper Midwest. And they're very, the perception in the community, especially with the Department of Agriculture, is excellent. They really are excited about working and most of doing outreach with the Latino community, because that's the one of the two major groups that are going to substitute the retiring farmers.
I'd like to add that in general, in the United States, we're living a momentum of assisting through this healthy initiative, or healthy food initiatives. And because of the constituency that we represent, we have received that positive welcoming to utilize the monetary resources out there for us to assist people starting their businesses in the farming area, or help them organize to form co-ops. We have found out that through cooperatives is how small farmers can get most of. Just to give a simple example, if a farm needs a truck, that person itself or herself or himself cannot buy the truck just as an individual, but as a co-op, it can all, 5-4 people forming a co-op can buy a truck and use it as it needs it. And so, yeah, we've received positive response. There's a lot to work on. Many have not been farmers in the past. Many were farmers and moved to here somewhere else to work in something else, and don't know the soil, how is it composed, and so we're helping them with starting techniques.
And I'd like to add that I think your question had to do with the reception of the immigrant farmer in rural Minnesota. Who asked that question? Is that what, am I correct? The reception? Well, Hannah mentioned Land Stewardship Project, or they mentioned Land Stewardship Project. And Land Stewardship Project is specifically working on supporting and educating, guiding beginner farmers. And agribiz, those huge growing concerns, they're large corporations, the systems they use aren't necessarily healthy for the earth, or maybe even the production of food or how it's done. And land stewardship, which is a dominant culture, white culture organization, but they're very focused on, as Monica's talking about, healthy food initiative, growing small plots, smaller farmers working to be able to get up to scale to produce and access the market. So as agribiz is this giant, the beginner farmer movement and healthy food movement where we're participating in is coming up, and some of our work, Heine's work, is the development of markets. that can connect these small farmers to market opportunity so that they can grow and sustain themselves. And it's a very interesting, wouldn't you say, Jaime, we've learned a lot and seen a lot about how difficult it is to farm as a small beginner farmer and all the supports that are needed.
Well, I would like to provide some numbers. Besides working in agriculture, personally, I do taxes during this tax season. And just to give you an idea, which is the title of this track, Economic Impact of Minnesota Immigrants. Just in the number of tax returns, I multiply about an average of about $35,000 per filer, and I came up with about $12 million that this specific community of 370 person already generated to the region. And they got probably about $2.5 million of refund. That's the type of, whether they're documented or undocumented, that's a big number here for the region. I'm talking from Lone Prairie to Sauk Center to Melrose and here in St. Cloud. So I think that the immigrant community, they really provide a lot of support to economic the region of here.
What's the success rate for a lot of these farmers that come to you guys? Do you usually like guaranteeing that they'll make it, or do a lot of them do what I realize in bed?
Are you asking us for a success story?
Well, like the success rate, is it like 100%, or how many people that come to actually set successful farms?
It will be very unfair from us to give you that precise answer because we're just actually, we finished our feasibility study last year and we're now implementing it. But for the implementation part, we need to outreach the farmers. And so, but I could tell you just a little bit from the Hmong community that we have also approached and they have approached us. The Hmong community, especially in the urban area or the surrounded urban area, have farmed for longer than 20 years. And they have sustained their household from farming. We believe they could have better techniques of following up with the financials, perhaps pricing better the product or even marketing better the product, because when they go out and sell at a farmer market, they could sell 1/3 or 2/3 of the goods that they harvested in early in the morning, and then the rest is pretty much lost. So LEDC is thinking on how to processing products, canned products, or bottle them, or making some sort of recipes, and after the farmer's market's gone, then let's go to a processing commercial kitchen and do something else. And so that's the only fact that we could probably share, unless there is some stories of farmers that we already knew that were farming.
Well, we have I have one particular person in mind, and this is Kala Farms out of Turtle Lake, Wisconsin. Although this person lives in Forest Lake, he bought a farm in Turtle Lake, Wisconsin. this person has been doing farming for the last 5 years, and he's getting to the point that he is ready to, let's say, have a revenue of about probably $70,000 a year, which is not a big number in revenue, but it's something that, considering the obstacle this person had, being undocumented, with a lack of credit, and lack of equipment, and between this person and his brother, they really, and the most important part, open market. That's critical. And he was able to land some of contracts with, for example, Chipotle, and some other small restaurants in the Twin Cities area. So I think that's a success, although he's still working full time. And during this time of year, he works basically 7 days a week without any time to relax. It is hard work.
But in terms of success, I think what you're asking, we can't answer yet. We've just begun the process, as Monica said. And we know that the challenges that they face are the balance between supporting their families, getting the farm up and going, being able to produce, access markets that will buy their product. The margins are small, but we're hopeful, and as Jaime described, we've tried to mitigate the risk by providing programming that supports them, so that we can get them past and support them in the development of markets where they can sell their produce that they produce. That's really the biggest issue, is the markets. Because like Monica was talking about, the Hmong farmers that sell at the farmers markets, some of those families are only bringing down $20,000 or $30,000 a year before expenses. So they're not making bank on farmers market produce selling. And what they really need is land. They need to scale up with land and access to equipment that helps them do better than manual farming, pulling weeds by hand, which a lot of them do. So it's about scale, it's about market opportunities, and having the support that they need through programs like we're trying to provide, and Land Stewardship is trying to provide, and the Department of Agriculture here in the state is trying to provide.
So how exactly did you guys get started then? Did you start out as just one or two people saying, hey, there's a colony, we need to help out, then these farmers do better, or was it something bigger than
How did we start that? One of the things that that Monica hit on is the opportunities that exist in the state. And our job is to kind of keep our pulse on what is happening out there. And I think that a very wise staffer that works with us, Mr. John Flory, identified that in the rural community, there's only so many restaurants, grocery stores, clothing stores that can be opened up in a small town, but there's a lot of land. And the aging farmer population and the immigrant work ethic combined to help us understand that there were great opportunities in farming in rural Minnesota for immigrants. And I think through that we identified grant money and applied for it, and we're awarded. We're in our second year, as Monica mentioned.
We're still
And
trying to
that's,
figure that out.
that's kind of how we got started in this
But
vein.
they must be
And
lifted.
it just keeps unfolding, and we see more and more opportunities. But we also see more and more barriers that we have to help immigrants overcome. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and just to add a little, and I go with you, ma'am, just to add a little bit more onto, LDC is a membership-based organization. So whatever our members bring us with, any concern or any opportunities, we will help them explore. But we also identify through the last, we've been as a 501c3 organization since 2003. And back then, there were many restaurants, many grocery stores, and at what point we said there got to be other business opportunities for people. Either they're not bringing those opportunities, but let's do something to identify how to diversify their entrepreneurial skills. And that was one of the things that we identified. But because also there were funding that were allowed us to go through a feasibility study and therefore also allowed us to implement it. So answering your question, it's been a slow process of not only assisting people what they want to do, but also us thinking of what we can tell our community it is good for them to develop as well, because there are resources, because there is lack of, or because the country needs it, etc. So just to add.
I'd be curious to hear about, Yolanda, you had used the word risk and undocumented, and I'm curious to know about, because I would assume that when you're approaching undocumented individuals with this opportunity, or they're coming to you, I mean, there's a great risk there for them. Many of us just listened to, the keynote speak about the new immigration pressures that are there, and I'd be curious to hear you speak about that and how that impacts your work and
because LABC has not taken immigration issues from the legal side, is that we've been able to continue working with our people. We don't need to know, to begin a working relationship with potential entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, we don't need to know their immigration status. For them to take some of our entrepreneurial classes, QuickBooks or customer service or English as a second language, we don't need to know the status unless it's pretty much the only situation, unless they're asking for funding. We might ask the question because we know there are some financing programs that are no to whoever does not have a current immigration status. So that's the only time we ask. Now, when our people, which are very trusted into what we do, and that's very positive, when they ask the question, can you help me because of my current immigration status, we say, and it is unfortunate, as a person there is a risk, but we can only assist you with your entrepreneurial desire. So from here there, we can assist you. From here then, we could not do much. There is always a risk. But then if it's really a concern from that person which we applaud, we ask them to go to an attorney, and for business-wise, there could be some organizational contract or organizational agreements saying that if something happens to me as the owner, sole owner of this business, then somebody else could take cover. So, and that's how banks have been more flexible in providing access to credit. If there are some documents filed with the Secretary of State office saying, I have an organizational agreement within my business, and here I am the owner, but here are the other officers that could also take over my business if I need to. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question. An undocumented person who gets benefit, who is involved with the farming, okay? They could, depending upon how they made the arrangements to purchase or acquire that farm area, right? If they're undocumented, how can they sign legal documents which would guarantee them the land? You won't make them a loan because of the fact that you might not get paid back if their undocumented situation involves deportation, right? Is that one of the concerns that we have? The undocumented person is really in a terrific bind because I don't see how they can acquire land without being fearful that the person they acquire it from can turn around and then declare them to be undocumented and then say the land belongs to me, even though they may have paid something for it. How can you get around that?
Sir, continue with what I just said. We cannot assist people on immigration issues. When there are some documents asked for that a bank asked or a mortgage institution asked, we see the documents that they ask for, and if this person have all those documents, we just introduce them to the lender, and it's the lender's isn't the lender's responsibility to go through their legality, and it has been possible for people to go into business with legally into business with some identification numbers that the IRS provide people without asking for immigrant status. So I know I went back and forward because I myself don't know much about immigration issues. But as long as the lender asks for certain documents and the person applying for that financing fulfills those documents, it's the lender's responsibility to accept them or not.
Oh, okay, I can go
And
on
we have
to-
not helped so far nobody acquiring land. So we've not gone.
Okay,
so,
you don't have anybody acquiring land.
Well, what I mentioned at the beginning, we've seen people buying farms, but as a sort of residency. I mean, it's a homestead. I mean, they're buying property to live in. And it happens that it used to be a farm before, and so they have the land to perhaps grow.
What I'm thinking of though is it possible for the undocumented person to be exploited by somebody else who says, yes, I will go into this contract with you, but if it's discovered that you cannot stay here and have to be left, who does the property then belong to? I mean, who gets any benefit from that, whether it's a house or anything else? Because if I'm undocumented and I buy something, I'm subject to the law which says that if I can't make the payments, it goes back to the party that was through the sale. Does that put the undocumented person in a very, very vulnerable situation? How can their investment bring them any kind of benefit if they're always under that suspicion that I can be pulled out and the property will go back somewhere? Can somebody exploit that?
Yeah, several things could happen, you're right. But I'm not sure how to answer that question since I have not witnessed it myself, either the organization, but it's valid.
Let me try to respond, and I hear what you're saying. You're worried about exploitation of an immigrant who's getting involved in a legal transaction, purchase of land, and what happens.
Well, even the purchase of a house.
When the raids happened in various places in the state years ago, people swooped in, wanted to go to the parking lots, get permission to tow the cars, sell the cars as unclaimed. I mean, there was a lot of that going on. It is the daily risk of someone who comes to this country in hopes of a better life. It is the risk that they know exists. It is the risk that they, maybe even if they don't know it exists, they learn when they get here and they take on that risk. I think that there is some, and I'm saying think, and I'm being real clear about that there, once the documents are signed, unless it's a contract for deed and the payments stop, they're the owners. If they can, from their home country of origin, pay the taxes or pay the payment, there is no reason that they should just automatically lose that property. You know, the house, the car, whatever it is. It is a concern, as Monica says, we don't really cross over into that area of immigration. You have issues that happen because of immigration. We are not the organization that's going to help.
And when having a business, whether the business is a farm or not, the owner has some vulnerability. Maybe the owner has to leave the state because a family member got very sick and the owner needs to take care of. I mean, there are certain, and maybe it's leaving the country for acquiring land over there, and by the time they wanted to come back, there were some misunderstandings with, who knows, with the embassies. And so when we don't only think about the whatever happens is always deportation. It could be other situations, and that's why we also talk about the operating agreement or the operational agreement document to being thought through with an attorney. And with the attorney, they will address those situations. But and I appreciate your your concerns. It is also our concerns, but we don't start with that only, but with any situations that as a business owner they can face.